As Assad said, we're going to be talking about change today. So who is excited to change? AP is not. So what we're going to talk about today is the need for change in accounts payable. We're also going to talk through the value that this is going to provide to your AP organization. And the big thing here is change management. How are we going to manage change in this process? Because as I mentioned, people do not like change. The top likes it, and everyone else does not. So those are some of the topics we're going to be going through today. Right now, in the global AP automation market, they are predicting market growth over the next 8 years and $10+ billion, or 17 or 24, depending on the sources that you get your information from. But this year, actually in a Gartner survey that was done earlier this year, that was for CFOs, 90% of those CFOs surveyed said that they were planning to increase their investment in AI this year and going forward. 0% said they were planning to decrease it. And 10% apparently were just happy with the way that it was. So this is something that's huge in the market right now. But unfortunately with that comes the need to manage the change that's going to come to your organization. So the problem is that you have your traditional AP challenges. And with that comes all of the things that you see that people are struggling with today. So you have data issues, you have a lot of manual processes, lack of visibility, and the inability to scale without significantly adding to your workforce. And that's a problem that we have to manage. So historically, AP has been incredibly manually process-driven. And while systems can help, unfortunately, as of right now, they cannot replace the human element, but they can improve the human element. And we need to understand that the AP, what the traditional AP persona is. In many cases, and I'm sure in many of your organizations you've run into this, you have someone who's been in AP for 20, 30, possibly 40 years, and they've always been doing it the same way. And they're not unhappy with that. The challenge is that you need to make them see that what they're doing today could be improved, it could be automated, and it doesn't mean that what they do goes away. And I know that much of what we're saying during this is that these tools in AP automation can help you reduce headcount. And while that's true, the need for the person still does not go away. And that's the thing that we need to focus on, is what is coming up in the market? What are the demands? One of the biggest things is people want to see data, and they want to see it now. They want information now. They like the instant gratification. If I don't get these cat coasters from Amazon in 2 days, I will die. So this is the market trend, unfortunately. The other thing is that you're going to see database decision-making is becoming very crucial, and people don't want to run around to procure that data and information. Also, vendor relationship management is something that's become very, very front of mind, because vendors also want this instant gratification. They want to know the information. They're not prepared to wait. And you want to improve your vendor relationships, because by improving those relationships, you can potentially get better pricing. They can prefer you for one reason or another. So maybe when we're talking about the overall global market and some of the challenges that we're having with demand, inventory, so on and so forth, if you're paying them and you're giving them the information that they need, maybe you're their #1 priority. So those are all things that really drive this need to continue to improve and change and manage this change. So going into this, there's a way that this can significantly scale and lower invoice processing costs and also improve your AP efficiency. The thing is, AP does understand the need for change in some cases, but they don't understand how AI can help. And there's a lot of things where you can really improve your process. Automatic supplier verification. There's the data element of this, where you have more accurate data coming into into your accounts payable team. And that's reducing the manual processes that they need. But the problem with that is that AP has been burned by your traditional OCR solutions. A lot of times those OCR solutions just don't work. And that's what they're seeing, and that's the expectation they have anytime you're bringing in something new. Because at one point, OCR was new. And it was something that they were told to rely on with this new technology. And unfortunately, if that's not working, they're now having to still check and put their hands on things and look at everything. And they often think that the AI solutions are going to be the same way, that they're going to have to be looking at everything. And you're not going to see the increase in the lift in the automation because you're still going to have someone sitting there trying to look at every single transaction. And they're not letting the AI do their work because they're not ready for the change. They're not enabled. They don't know how to manage it. And they also don't trust it. And I always say, you have to trust but verify. So there's a process in play where as you're starting this to bring this new technology in, you can allow AP to still retain some of what they're doing today, but don't do everything that the technology is doing. Allow it to do its work. So maybe in the beginning it is a spot checking process where you allow them to go in, but they're not checking everything. And as they get a comfort level with the tools and the solutions, they're going to be able to step back and let the tool do their job, which allows them to actually be more strategic in what they're doing. So some of the change management strategies for a successful deployment, really, preparation is the first thing. Preparation involves communication, information, and just really getting people comfortable with what's coming. It shouldn't be something that they see for the first time in maybe testing. Maybe they weren't even involved in testing. Maybe they don't even know this is coming, and all they've heard is there's a tool coming, and they don't know anything about it. So that's something where getting that level of comfort out there is great. You have to have those clear objectives for what's coming and how they can benefit from it, so that instead of it being forced on them, they're really wanting this change to come. And the biggest thing is leadership support in this piece. But leadership support doesn't just mean a leader gets up and tells you this is coming. It means that they're actually helping you to learn about this, providing the necessary staffing support, whatever it may be, to get these people comfortable. The next is really building that change management team. So a change management team is something that I think is incredibly missed in a lot of implementations. Sometimes you don't even hear about change management until you're starting to test. I just recently, last week, sat in a testing session, and it was the first time we saw the change management team. They gave us a set of Post-it notes, and they said, when you come along across a change, write it on a Post-it and stick it on the wall. We're in testing, guys. Like, what are you going to do about it? So, I mean, this is something, you need this clear team. They need to come in early. And it needs to include a combination of your stakeholders and what we call your change champions. Your change champions are people, they're not necessarily leading the work stream, but they're people that sit within the functions that are changing. So it may be an AP leader that is a stakeholder, and maybe someone who's actually doing daily AP tasks is acting as a change champion. So they're learning about the technology and the tools, and they're coming back and educating holistically their organization to help their organization prepare for this. And again, top down and bottom up. That change network, that's your bottom up side of this change. You need the education and the information to be passed around so that people aren't getting surprised, scared, or otherwise, but also that continued top-down communication from leadership. As I've said communication a lot, training communication. So early and often, biggest piece that you have to run into. If you're not early, you're late. And if it's not frequent, people forget, especially when you're talking about tools that take a long time to implement. In this case, these technologies are fairly fast, but you still might be looking at months of implementation. If somebody hears about it once in January and it comes in October, they may not even remember. And then addressing resistance. Don't address resistance by saying, we don't care. or we're not listening. Addressing resistance is coming up with a plan for, we hear you, and here's what we're going to do about it. And sometimes there might be gaps, or there might be something that wasn't thought of. And that's something that you have to acknowledge and manage and let people know. Don't just surprise them by all of a sudden there's a gap in this technology. Maybe it's because it wasn't day one. Maybe it was something that was pushed off until later because it wasn't necessarily the most critical thing. But continue to communicate that to people. And finally, implementation roadmap. It's really important. Pilot testing, roadshows, and feedback topics. Roadshows, I'm not sure if a lot of people are familiar with that concept. But a roadshow is really where you're taking this product out into the world. You might be going, if it's a global enterprise, for example, going to the global enterprise, doing demonstrations, inviting feedback from people that may not be part of your implementation team, but it's still critical feedback that you need to hear, but also it gets people to see what's coming. And that's, I think, something that is a very valuable tool in change, because if people have seen it, they can be maybe more comfortable with what's coming. So again, this is something that you have to look at for the size of your implementation and see what makes sense. This is my change management framework. So prepare, inform, engage, enforce, and sustain. So here, again, preparing. You've got to get people ready for this. You have to ensure that they know that this is coming, as we talked about, creating that awareness. Informing, you're setting clear goals and expectations with your organization to understand what's coming, when it's coming, why is it coming in some cases. And then the next step is the implementation, managing that resistance, managing those impacts, ensuring that people are heard and things are not just getting set in the parking lot and nobody ever looks at them again. Compliance, enforce. This is important. Compliance is something that is lost oftentimes when we're talking AP, because there's so many ways to do it outside of what you're doing. They can find, they've been doing it manual for a long time. They can find a way to do it manual again. So this is something that you have to ensure that you're managing and looking at. And if somebody's continuing to do a manual process, why? Why are you doing it this way? Maybe it's because there is a gap. Maybe it's because there's something that wasn't considered. So this is something where enforcing this compliance is critically important, not only to understand what's happening, because part of this automation is you want better compliance with everything. And that continues with your own organization. And then finally, sustaining, so that adoption, so continuing to drive and sustain action. The thing I have here at the bottom is that, again, people don't always have is a change advisory board. And having an advisory board is a great thing because they are really focused on what the organization is. The organization is their customer. And they are the ones who are helping to advocate for that customer. So it should really be a cross-functional team. They're acting as strategic project advisors from the organization to the project team. And they can see where things are getting missed, slipping through the cracks. Right people in the right place. You need those to be the right collection of people, not just, oh, I grabbed this person over here who was, a project manager for this, and we're putting them here. This is going to be their focus now. You need to have people that make sense. Invite the change champions and stakeholders to take the ownership of presentation of change topics. So when those things come up, your stakeholder should be the one presenting. And the reason is because it shows their actual ownership and adoption to their peers, again, and it also continues to bring that knowledge into the organization. And don't be the bottleneck. Big thing with change advisory boards is you get too high in the executive level, and all of a sudden your CEO is in every change meeting and has to sign off on something. He's busy. These things get canceled, they go away, and all of a sudden you can't make any decisions on the project. So this is something to keep in mind. You gotta have the right people, but don't make this a bottleneck within the project. So the last couple pieces here, overcoming resistance to change. So employee adoption is crucial because AI can't yet completely take the place of humans. So we have to have those humans involved and actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So by automating these time-consuming, repetitive tasks that the AP team is doing, by using AI algorithms, AP teams can actually be freed up to be more strategic and valuable within the organization and do work that they may not be doing today because they don't have time, because they're doing too much. So they are also now armed with valuable insights and data that can be used to rectify any bottlenecks, strengthen their supplier relationships, guide important decision-making, and truly add more value to their role, even if their role doesn't look the same as it always has. So really, there's concerns that are valuable and are legitimate that you have to work through. So data, we've heard today, data security and privacy is something that gets brought up a lot here when we're talking about AI. And that's something that we really need to work through to get the organization to understand how this works with that. So, compliance, it's going to free up, reduce the compliance challenges they have. So various things with data migration is another area that we also hear is traditionally a challenge. So data migration issues is going to come up because people are going to say, we have so much data, we don't have time, we don't know how we're going to move it. Again, it's a real issue, but there's a path forward. And again, cost management. So really, especially when you're talking enterprises that may be very cost conscious in the small to medium enterprises, you have to demonstrate the value and the ROI. We are making an investment, but look at what we're getting. Look at what we're going to get and continue to track against that. Employee skill development. So this is a place where you want to focus on the retain and retrain. So just because your job changes, or it may change, isn't a bad thing. We can work with you to make you a more strategic part of the organization. And then integration with existing systems. There's a lot going on with integration all the time. And the thing about it is you can make it work. And the great thing about AppSend, when we're talking here, they've got a ton of certified connectors, so that one should not be an issue if we're talking AppSend. So final slide here. AI can deliver a lot to an AP team if they're willing to let it. And they can now spend their time improving and leveraging automation if they are empowered to change. So the long-term vision, their role and responsibility may not look the same as it did before. But now they can take advantage of the data and the information and go to the organization and provide more value than they did previously. And then now you're improving that scalability and flexibility and allowing them to go out and do their job better. Maybe they can become better stakeholders in the organization and really be able to fully interact and improve the roles of other organizations as well. So the main point here is change is not the worst thing. It can be managed, and it will always improve.